He said that they had received a number of reports, including a person in a river and a man with a knife, that firearms officers, they could not confirm the number of casualties, but that there had been several. He urged the public to stay away from the surrounding areas around the Houses of Parliament in the centre of London, normally a very busy tourist area. And he also urged the public to hand in any footage, any film pictures that might have been taken. Let's go straight to inside Parliament. We can join the MP Hilary Benn, who's there. Hilary Benn, tell us what is going on at the moment.
Well, currently, the chamber of the House of Commons, the doors to the right, which lead to the members' lobby, are normally always open, and they were locked, shut. So we were asking, well, what's going on? And then someone said, well, the attack alarm has been sounded. There appears to have been an incident. And the leader of the House of Commons, David, and the attacker had been shot by police. He said there are also reports of other violent incidents in the vicinity of the House of Commons, and it's clear from the televisions, and there appears to be speculation that the car then stopped outside Parliament, and the driver got out and came round, and then it said is the person who stabbed the police and was then shot. But there's still a lot of uncertainty. There are people injured, quite clearly, and I think the BBC is reporting elsewhere that at least one person has died.
Indeed.
And as, of course, everybody's thoughts are with those who've been caught up in this terrible incident, those who've been injured, and those who've lost their lives, and above all, their families and friends who must be worried sick at the moment.
Hilary Benn, you are a former government minister, and at a time like this, obviously, the Cabinet Office briefing rooms, begin to meet and monitor the situation.
Yes.
Give us an idea of what will be happening inside the Cabinet, at the top levels of government. Theresa May monitoring the situation at this time.
Well, the Prime Minister had been here, I think, voting, and then left. And what would normally happen is, yes, the Prime Minister would gather and start to try and piece together what has been going on. But the most important thing is it's the operational control on the ground of the Met Police, the House authorities here. There have been armed police officers in the building around to make sure that there's nobody else who has got in. There's no evidence that that is the case, but they're just trying to make sure. And the annunciator, the screen which tells us what's going on in the House of Commons, they said there's an incident, stay in your room, do not move about, and people will be instructed later about what to do when it's clear that it's safe for people to come out. But the police want to check, I'm sure, that there's no further risk or danger to members of the public or to those who work in the Palace of Westminster.
And explain to us how it works. The COBRA committee, it's a response committee that coordinates all the different government bodies. What will they be looking at?
Well, they will be trying to get reports about what is going on. But I recall I was in the Cabinet room when the 7/7 attacks took place in London, and a note was handed to the Transport Secretary saying, he said there appears to be some incident on the Underground, we're not quite sure what it is, and then someone else came in a little later and he said there's clearly a very serious incident. The Cabinet meeting was suspended, and those who needed to went off to be briefed about what was going on. I walked out of the room on that occasion, went into the office next door, and there was the television news on with a picture of the bus that was blown up. And at that moment, I and everyone else understood exactly what was going on. So information, it takes time to be clear about exactly what has happened, what the sequence of events was, and that all needs to be pieced together. But the immediate response is that of police who have been called, those in command of handling the incident, to make sure that any threat has been dealt with, that the injured are treated, taken to hospital, that the public is kept away from where the incident has taken place, so people have been pushed back around Parliament, and then for those in this case, for those of us in the building, making sure that we stay here until such time as the police who've got operational command think that it's safe for us to leave the chamber and for other people to leave their offices.
Okay, Hilary Benn, the London Ambulance Service now saying that they've treated at least 10 people on Westminster Bridge. And we also know that there will be a COBRA meeting tonight chaired by the Prime Minister. At that point, is it still about security, or is it about more of a response from the government to what's happening?
Well, I'm sure at some point the Prime Minister will say something. And look, I think the most important thing is these attacks, and that is clearly what it is, and the police and the security services said for a long time an attack is highly likely. We have known this. The most important thing is that we demonstrate as a society, as parliamentarians of whatever party, our resolve. We are not going to give in to intimidation and attack. We're not going to change our way of life. We're not going to give in. And we have to show our strength and determination while thinking above all of those who have, it seems now, at least one person has lost their life, others who've been seriously injured, and their families, because we will deal with this, and we will deal with this by standing united.
Hilary Benn, thank you very much indeed. I'm going to go now to the MP, Andrew Bridgen, who is also, I believe, Andrew, you are inside the Palace of Westminster as well.
We've just been evacuated. Many hundreds of us have just been evacuated into Westminster Abbey now, where we're going to have our details taken before we can leave completely. Which is obviously to ensure that there's no one that shouldn't be in amongst all the hundreds and hundreds of people who are in the parliamentary estate.
So, who has been evacuated? Is it just MPs? Give us a sense of who's there. And you've obviously walked across that main road into the Abbey.
Here. MPs are here, members of staff are here, people who work on the parliamentary estate are here, visitors are here. It's everybody that would ever be in the House of Parliament today.
And what's the mood? What are you seeing? Obviously relief, I'm sure.
Yes, I think there's an awful lot of armed police about, and obviously these are all people who are in the parliamentary estate. There's still hundreds and hundreds of people coming in. We had been held in Westminster Hall before we crossed the road out to the parliamentary estate, and obviously now there's going to be a lot of producing of IDs for people to prove who they actually are.
And, I mean, we've had reports, of school children visiting. There have been a lot of people from all over the country who've come down to Parliament for various reasons. Do you know what happens next? Do you simply get to go home?
We're very much in the hands of the security service. We're certainly going to have to all produce ID to prove who we are before we are released. And I would presume that when we go out to Westminster Abbey, we will be moving home. So I'll be able to release to go home, but the police have not confirmed right yet.
What are your thoughts, given what's happened today? I know we don't have the details of why it's happened and who's carried it out, but Scotland Yard saying that they are currently treating it as a terrorist incident.
The thing is, it has all the hallmarks of a terrorist incident. We know, those of us who work in Parliament, we know the level of security, the target that our Parliament and the people in it are to various groups around the world who wish our country and our democracy no good at all. We have a lot of drills, the security is very tight, and it's accepted by people in Parliament. It was almost inevitable that there was going to be an attempted attack, but obviously when it actually happens, that is still a very sobering experience, almost surreal.
Andrew Bridgen, thank you very much for joining us. Glad to hear that all of those people are safe. Andrew Bridgen, MP, who's now been evacuated with hundreds of others from the Houses of Parliament across the road to Westminster Abbey. Let me just remind you what we know so far about these two incidents in central London. A car has ploughed into pedestrians on Westminster Bridge. killing one woman, injuring several others. We don't know the number. Also reports that the attacker's car then crashed into the railings at the Houses of Parliament. Witnesses say that they saw a man with a knife getting out and stabbing a police officer. The Prime Minister, Theresa May, has been evacuated. She's been taken to safety. Parliament has been suspended. The buildings are now being evacuated, and she will be chairing a meeting of the government's emergency committee later. And stay with us right here on the BBC World Service. The newsroom is going to be up next with continuing coverage of the events in central London. This is the BBC World Service, where we begin a series of programmes and events examining our relationship with nature. Life stories.
On Sunday, we're at the Oxford Literary Festival, where international authors, performers and festival goers are gathering for inspiring talks, debates and lectures. Soak in the atmosphere as we broadcast live, exploring questions about the natural world and our role in nature.
The Oxford Literary Festival, Sunday at 13 GMT.
This is the BBC World Service. Now, due to events earlier today around the UK Parliament, we have a change to our scheduled programme. Next, you can hear the newsroom. For Outlook, go to bbcworldservice.com/Outlook.
Available on the BBC iPlayer radio app. This is the BBC World Service, the world's radio station.
Hello at 17 hours GMT. Welcome to a special edition of the newsroom from the BBC World Service, focusing on an attack outside the Houses of Parliament in London. I'm Ben Brand. As we go on air, a major security operation is happening after a police officer was stabbed and the alleged assailant was then shot by armed police.
Two plainclothes guys with guns shouted at him, uttered what sounded like a warning. He ignored it, and then shot 2 or 3 times, and he fell.
There are also reports of several people being mown down by a car on nearby Westminster Bridge. Doctors say one woman's died and other people have been seriously injured. The Prime Minister, Theresa May, was in the grounds at the time. She was quickly ushered away. And this update from London's Metropolitan Police in the last few minutes.
And although we remain open-minded to the motive, a full counter-terrorism investigation is already underway.
The Houses of Parliament remain in lockdown. This is the BBC News. Hello, I'm Jonathan Izard. A car has ploughed into pedestrians on Westminster Bridge in central London, killing one woman and injuring at least 10 other people in an apparent terrorist attack. Martin Pierce is an eyewitness.
There was a gentleman, I don't know if he jumped over the side to avoid this person, but he was being looked after by some ambulance crews, and as I walked up the bridge onto the bridge where it happened, there was a lady in a pool of her own blood. There was another lady next to her who was injured, and as I looked towards Big Ben, there was a lady in the road. There was about 3 people sitting up against the bridge being looked after, and it's something you just don't expect to see in
Police and taken to hospital. A journalist for the Daily Mail newspaper, Quentin Letts, saw the man arrive at New Palace Yard.
This man had something in his hand. It looked like a stick of some sort. He was challenged by a couple of policemen in yellow jackets, and one of the yellow-jacketed policemen fell down, and we could see the man in black moving his arm in a way that suggested he was either stabbing or striking the policeman. One of the policemen then ran to get help, and as this attacker was running towards the entrance used by MPs, 2 plainclothes guys with guns shouted at him, and they shot 2 or 3 times, and he fell.
Police say they're treating it as a terrorist incident unless it's proven otherwise. It's likely to reignite a debate over the levels of protection provided at Parliament, as our Europe regional editor Danny Aberhard reports. Security around the Houses of Parliament has been considerably tightened in the years since the 9/11 attacks in the United States. This has been done while trying to retain a sense of accessibility to the public and not turn one of London's major tourist attractions into a fortress. But the fact that an attacker managed to breach the perimeter cordon that leads into the yard at the foot of Big Ben will cause considerable concern. After the incident, police moved fast to lock down the area and close off Westminster Bridge. Sittings in both legislative chambers have been suspended. The Prime Minister is safe and has been evacuated. Mrs May will chair a meeting of the government's emergency committee later. A spokesman for London's Metropolitan Police couldn't confirm the number of casualties. Commander B.J. Harrington said additional officers were being deployed across London. He said a full counter-terrorism investigation was underway.
Since 2:40 this afternoon, the MPS has responded to an incident in the area of Parliament Square, and the Senior National Coordinator has declared this a terrorist incident. And although we remain open-minded to the motive, a full counter-terrorism investigation is already underway. This is led by the Met Counter-Terrorism Command.
You're listening to the latest world news from the BBC. The American Secretary of State Rex Tillerson has opened a meeting of the 68 countries that comprise the US-led coalition against the Islamic State group by declaring that defeating IS is the United States